What a head, son! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to bring you guys the ultimate guide to Game Week 7. First of all, I just want to say I do apologize if you guys can hear thunder, lightning in the background. Currently is storming where I am based, but the FPL grind never stops, so that's why I'm still creating this video for you guys. But as I said, I do apologize if there is some background noise. But coming back to this specific video, I'm going to be going over the usual talking points of the ultimate guide, starting off with the watch list, where we will be covering some interesting talking points, especially about the Chelsea assets. We then will be moving on to the players that either need replacing because of injury or just because they're not looking like good options anymore. And the three options we're going to be talking about are firstly going to be Trent, then we're going to move on to Luke Shaw, and then finally Jota from Liverpool. We're then going to move on to a talking point relating to the wildcard, and I have created a graphic that will hopefully provide you guys some clarity on whether to wildcard in Game Week 7 or Game Week 8. The final talking point of this video is going to be the Captaincy debate, which yet again, like Game Week 6, proves to be quite an interesting debate on which players to kind of opt for. So that's something you guys are interested in? Sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So as I mentioned in the introduction, this watch list is going to be about these three players in front of you, but also a couple of talking points revolving around them. So the first talking point, yet again, a reminder about the European football that's being played today and tomorrow. Right off the bat, I am recording this as the kickoffs for the Champions League fixtures on Wednesday night have just kicked off. And the reason why I've waited this long today to record this video is that I wanted to give you guys the most up-to-date news as possible around the Chelsea and Man United lineups. But we do still have the European football with the Europa League and the Conference League happening as you guys are probably watching this video tomorrow. So just keep your guys' eyes on that as the likes of West Ham, Spurs, those sort of clubs also are featuring. But now going on to the talking point of the watch list, and the first player we're going to be going over is going to be Marcos Alonso. And I just wanted to let you guys know that Marcos Alonso is basically the poster boy I'm using for the Chelsea assets. So mainly for the defense, but we'll also be talking about the attack in this talking point. And we're going to start off with the centre backs. So if you guys don't know, Chelsea do play a back five system with two wing backs, a left and a right wing back. Marcos Alonso has basically locked down that left wing back spot, but now Ben Chilwell is back in the kind of rotation and he could potentially start in Game Week 7. But on the right side of things, it's going to be Reece James or Azpilicueta. And right now, Reece James is currently injured. It is currently sort of a pain injury. Tuchel did confirm a couple days ago that as long as Reece James can play through the pain, he should be back fairly shortly. But while he is out, Azpilicueta has wrapped up that right wing back slot. So if you guys do want a more nailed option, as long as Reece James is going to be out for the foreseeable future, then I would look at Azpilicueta. So now that I said I'd start off with the centre backs, and I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent there with the full backs, but in terms of the centre backs, the three centre backs that Chelsea have been opting for are going to be Christensen, Thiago Silva, and then also Rudiger. So I do prefer Rudiger because he's definitely the most nailed kind of defender from Chelsea. I would 100% opt for Thiago Silva, but unfortunately he is a little bit of an injury prone player, and I would really want him because his XG or his attacking threat off those set pieces is simply outstanding. And unfortunately he is a little bit injury prone, so that's why I won't be going for him. And then with Christensen, he's been the most prone to some rotation. So if you guys do want to opt for a more secure kind of conservative option, Rudiger's definitely your man to go for in that sort of slot. And I think the majority of managers will either go for Azpilicueta because he can drop into that centre back slot, or they'll go for Rudiger. But now going on to Marcos Alonso, the player that's actually been on our watch list, and the reason why I actually wanted to wait as long as I did today to make this video is that I wanted to see if Marcos Alonso was going to play against Juventus. And unfortunately, or fortunately, he's in the starting 11 for that fixture. Now my recommendation for you guys would be just go back and check when Marcos Alonso did get subbed off, if at all. And if he does get subbed off about the 60-70 minute mark, granted it's not an injury kind of concern and he has an average game, I do think he's looking good to start against Southampton in Game Week 7. But now is the reason why I said unfortunately, is I do think this could be one of those cases where there could be some rest and rotation, and Ben Chilwell finds himself in the starting 11 against Southampton. So my current thinking is that if Alonso plays the full 90 minutes today, I probably wouldn't look at him as an option if you guys are on a wild card or on those free transfers. If you're already taken Alonso in, nothing much you can do there, just simply start him and hope for the best. But I think if you guys haven't made the move, I would probably go for some more of a safety option with an Azpilicueta or a Rudiger. And now going on to our second kind of options, we do have Tomiyasu, who's been on my watch list for quite a couple of game weeks. So if you guys have watched these ultimate guides this Premier League season, you're probably sick of seeing Tomiyasu, but simply put, I just haven't found the time to bring a budget defender in. And right now at 4.5 million, if you guys did watch my wildcard draft, I included Ben White. And for a 0.1 more, you can get more of an attacking threat for this Arsenal fullback. So currently has locked down that right back slot for Arsenal, who have picked up a little bit of form over these previous couple game weeks. And I think they're going to continue that into these next couple game weeks. So that's why if you're on a wildcard or looking for maybe a budget option to look at, I think Tomiyasu at 4.5 is extremely good value. Doesn't necessarily have the best attacking threat, but as I said, maybe a little bit more of an attacking threat than a Ben White at 4.4 million. And the final play to look at is going to be Jack Grealish. Unfortunately, didn't have the best game against PSG last night, but I think that's a tough game to kind of go by. He has played every single Premier League minute since he has signed for Man City in the Prem. So I think that's a great stat to have considering the amount of pep roulette we usually have to deal with. Having a nailed Man City attacker is simply FPL gold. My only concern is how actually nailed he's going to be in these upcoming game weeks. We saw Phil Foden get subbed on for Jack Grealish, and I mean that could be kind of a regular occasion. Maybe Phil Foden plays on that left side more often now that he's back from injury. However, Kevin De Bruyne has now been incorporated into the squad, and you guys must also remember that Gundogan is out injured, so he's not even in the starting 11. So what happens when he finds his way back into that starting team? I mean, a lot of concern there about Jack Grealish, but I think he is one of the more nailed attackers to go for Man City, and I don't necessarily think it should be this week. I think if you guys are looking at a Game Week 8 wildcard, he would definitely be penciled in to my current draft. The Man City fixtures from Game Week 8 onwards look simply great. I know around Game Week 10 or so, they have 3 red fixtures from FPL's point of view, but I still think it's Man City, one of the most fixture-proof teams to look at. But I think I'd be looking at him after the Game Week 7 fixture against Liverpool. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of the watch list. Are you guys still going to go for a Marcos Alonso? Might actually be worth the risk because if he does start against Southampton, I honestly consider him to be maybe even a Captaincy option if you guys do look at him. But then you might have to rely on some more news before the deadline that he will be starting against Southampton. So now going on to the first of 3 players that we will be touching on in terms of injuries or just general options that might not be that attractive for these opening couple game weeks. Unfortunately for Trent, it has been the injury side of things. Now I just want to say that it's not 100% confirmed that he will be missing Game Week 7 against Man City, but it's pretty likely. Jurgen Klopp came out yesterday after the Champions League game against Porto and said that unfortunately he does have, I think it's a thigh injury at the current moment, and it's not looking good for the Game Week 7 fixture against Man City. Now there is an international break after that, and I think the general time frame that has been projected onto Trent is going to be 3 weeks. So he might actually be back for this Watford fixture in Game Week 8. And I think if he is going to be back for that, I think it's worth kind of holding Trent. But if we do get confirmed news that it's going to be more of a long-term injury, I definitely think I'll be looking to take him out. And the reason for that is you look at Game Week 7, missing Man City, missing Watford in Game Week 8, and then just look at those fixtures over those next couple game weeks. United, we then have a Brighton, West Ham, not really good fixtures to be honest. Now this is Liverpool and it is Trent. Like Man City, a kind of fixture-proof team, and Trent can always get an attacking return from simply anywhere off those set pieces, but I think it's more likely to just downgrade him to a Chelsea or Man City option with better fixtures than simply keep him at that price point. You guys can see that in terms of projected points, not even going to talk about them, went over to Fantasy Football Fix, and unfortunately, because Trent doesn't have a kind of time frame attached to him right now officially, the projected points are all over the place, and he's basically projected to score 0 points for the next couple game weeks. So my consensus on Trent would be I would probably hold him if you can. I consider it more of a luxury transfer. I would consider maybe a Luke Shaw if he's going to be out as a high priority transfer out. And I just think because he's so expensive, most managers might take him out and that might cause him to drop in price. But if you did buy him from the start of the season, that price drop won't affect you anyways. So I'll be waiting on more confirmed news from Trent, hopefully in the press conferences tomorrow or on Friday. And if we do get more news about a long-term injury, then I definitely think I'll be saying goodbye to him just because I need to spread the budget a little bit. And the fixtures when he does come back from the injury don't look too strong. Now going on to the next defender with a potential injury problem, Luke Shaw. I didn't even travel with United today, wasn't spotted at the team hotel and wasn't on the bench even against Villarreal, which is happening as I speak. So unfortunately it does look a little bit bad for Luke Shaw as well for this upcoming game week. It does look like he's going to be a major doubt, or at least a big doubt for that game against Everton at home. Now this could always change. I would wait for the press conference news as well from Ollie, or maybe after the Champions League game tonight he gives us a little bit more of an update. But if Luke Shaw is going to be out, I do think he's more of a priority than Trent just because of the fixture run that Man United do go on. So you can see from game week 7 to about game week 15, the fixtures don't look that great for the red side of Manchester. And at 5.5, that is a little bit of wiggle room there. You can go for a Chelsea option, can also maybe upgrade to a City option. And when you do look at the projected points, 18.1 is not too great, to be honest. So the Chelsea assets and Man City assets, if I can remember correctly, were projected to score about 30 points over these next couple game weeks. So I think that's definitely more of an upgrade over the Manchester United fullback. But as with Trent, I'll be waiting for more news in the press conference, but I do think that I would rather take Shaw out before I do Trent. And finally, Jota, which I don't know if all of you actually have Jota in your starting 11 or at least in your FPL team. So you guys can skip ahead if you don't own him. But my consensus on Jota is I'm a little bit worried about him even starting against Man City in game week 7. And the reason for that is that Firmino did come off the bench. I always said if Firmino did get minutes against Porto, I thought that Klopp would go for him because from a pressing point of view, Firmino is better at the press than Jota is. And that's why I think Firmino is going to be more favored. Now, Klopp could actually go for a kind of front four. He could play Mane, Salah, Jota and Firmino together, but that has been a little bit of a rarity formation that Klopp has opted for. But I mean, anything can happen, especially if Trent is going to be injured. But my current thinking is that I think I'm going to take Jota out, probably for the likes of Rafinha, but I'm going to confirm that obviously after the press conferences, as I just think that Jota, if he's not going to start against Man City, even if he comes off the bench, doesn't look like a great option. And the one thing to note about Firmino is that he also wasn't selected in the Brazilian squad, so he's going to have a full international break off, so he's going to be raring to go for that Watford fixture in game week 8. And that's why I think there's too much kind of up in there right now about a Jota situation, and that's why I think I might jump on the bandwagon to take him out before Man City and bring in an option that has a better fixture. Now the projected points over the next couple game weeks are actually quite good, 33.2 points, but in terms of the fantasy football fix algorithm, it might not be taking his expected minutes in, and I think over the next couple game weeks he'll probably be benched more than he actually is going to play. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys do own Jota, what you're doing with him. Are you taking him out? Who are you taking him out for? Or are you keeping him and maybe hoping that he scores against Man City? And now going on to the talking point that I'm actually most excited about, because this did take a little bit of time to create, but I think the information from this is going to be invaluable. So what I did was I had a little bit of confusion about the Game Week 7 versus Game Week 8 wildcard. And a lot of people were asking me on the Game Week 6 deadline stream and in the comments throughout the videos this past week. So what I decided to do was I decided to make a graph on the Game Week 7 fixtures and also the Game Week 8 fixtures, just to create some clarity on what teams you should be focusing on for Game Week 7 versus Game Week 8. And the purpose of this kind of graphic, and what I wanted to show you guys here, is that if you do have more players that have a better game week in Game Week 7 versus Game Week 8, I would probably hold off on the wildcard and then wildcard next game week. But if it's kind of the opposite scenario, then maybe consider going for a Game Week 7 wildcard. As you can see, not many teams kind of have a bad fixture in Game Week 7 and Game Week 8, except for the likes of Brentford. So what I did here was I went over to Fantasy Football Fix and I went to their fixture analyzer and I sorted the X and Y axis according to attacking rated fixture for that specific game week. So you guys can kind of correlate it depending on what team you want. I'll take Brighton for example. So you can see on the X axis he has a relatively mediocre fixture that's kind of in the middle of the pack, but then the Game Week 8 fixture is right at the top of the screen, and that means the Game Week 8 fixture is probably one of the best in that specific game week. If I can remember correctly, I think it's Norwich at home that Brighton do have, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Just simply replace that with whatever team they are facing. But if you guys are going to be using a Game Week 8 wildcard, what I would do is I would go to the X-axis, look at the highest teams there, and I would bring those players in as a 1 week punt. So how I use this graph for my own team is that I do own a Watford asset. I do also own the Wolves assets, and you can see there on this kind of X-axis, Wolves have a great fixture in Game Week 7, and in Game Week 8, the fixture doesn't look as strong. And that's why, if you guys did watch the team selection yesterday, I said that I was leaning towards maybe keeping the wildcard for Game Week 8, because I want to take advantage of these Game Week 7 fixtures that have a bad fixture in Game Week 8, respectively. But how you guys can also use this graph is that if you are on a wildcard for Game Week 7 or Game Week 8, you guys can come back to this graph, and especially if you're on the Game Week 7 wildcard, choose players from the teams that have a great Game Week 8 fixture and a great Game Week 7 fixture. So you guys can see from a Chelsea and a Leeds point of view, that's probably the teams that I'd be focusing on, but then I would also include those Man City assets from Game Week 8 onwards. You guys can also see that Arsenal have a relatively good fixture for Game Week 8, and that's why I spoke about a Tomiyasu. Maybe if you guys want to go for a Smith Rowe, a Saka, they look like great shots for that Game Week 8 wildcard. But what I also wanted to clarify is that I did add my own little spice to these fixture ratings. Fantasy Football Fix has one way of doing it, but I didn't necessarily agree with all of them. So I did add, as I said, a little bit of spice to some of them to improve or downgrade that respective fixture. So let me know in the comments down below if this talking point was helpful for you. I just want to kind of know for future game weeks if this would be quite a helpful kind of talking point for you guys, maybe give you some clarity on those decisions. As for my own personal team, it did kind of give me some thoughts and teams to kind of target with that Game Week 7 or Game Week 8 wildcard. So now going on to the captaincy debate for the upcoming Game Week 7, and as I always do, I'm going to be going over my 3 favorite options first, and then looking at the projected high scorers from Fix in the next talking point. So firstly, I apologize for this. I don't know how this slide got here. I don't know what's happening here. Traore is definitely not the best option to go for. I don't know what he did. Maybe I was hacked by Dama Traore on my YouTube account or something. But so I'm sorry. Let's get to the actual selections and not kind of the joke selections. So the actual selections, what I've done is I've gone for 2 more assured options, the 2 most popular options for Game Week 7. And then I've included my differential for the upcoming game week. And that differential is going to be Ismaila Sarr. Watford take on Leeds. It is an away fixture, but Leeds have had some defensive injuries. I don't think it'll be as bad as it was last week in Game Week 6, as there will be some players returning from suspensions and injuries. But I think Ismaila Sarr, with the form that he's currently on, I think that he can kind of replicate this as he has in the past couple game weeks with at least a goal against Leeds. Now, the one caveat I will say is that Watford's XG, their attacking stats don't look great at all. That's the only thing I would warn you guys about. But Ismaila Sarr, even though the stats haven't been that great for Watford, he still is getting returns. So just imagine if Watford pull it together and get some good chances going forward, Ismaila Sarr can definitely haul in this one. So that's why, from a differential point of view, I would maybe look at him. But I think the options for captaincy are quite few and far between. So it's a little bit of a stretch here. But I think most people will be opting for the next 2 options. That's going to be Ronaldo and Lukaku. So both these 2 players do have a home fixture. In terms of who has the better fixture, it's a little bit up in there at the moment. Everton and Southampton have similar defensive stats, but Southampton have faced a higher quality of attacking teams. So it just shows you that maybe Southampton's actually a harder fixture than we are considering. So on paper, according to the stats, Ronaldo has the easier fixture, and I don't really know how I feel about it. The only thing about Ronaldo that I will say is that not only are United on great form, maybe against Villarreal tonight, they pick that up, then it'll make me a little more confident in captaining the Portuguese international, but he is also playing the first game of the game week. And you guys know what happens. Never captain a player in the opening game. We saw it last week with him when he played against Aston Villa, didn't get any returns. So is this kind of superstitious? I don't know. Maybe he's going to break it this week. I mean, if there's any player to break this curse, it's going to be CR7. I just don't know if I can bring myself to making that mistake again and going for an early captain. I'm just joking with that, obviously. I don't think you guys should be basing it on something like that. I don't really think it has any reasoning, to be honest. But I think how I would think about this decision is that I think I trust Lukaku a little bit more. So if I did own both assets, I would go for Lukaku over Ronaldo. But I think most of us will be either going for Ronaldo because we have him or going for Lukaku because we only have him as well. I don't think I'd be doing the move of Ronaldo to Lukaku. I think from Game Week 8 onwards, that looks like a better transfer. So I think keep who you have, captain who you have. But if you do have both, I would probably go for Lukaku. Let me know who your top 3 captaincy choices are. And maybe next Ultimate Guide, I'll give you guys a shout out if you manage to predict the best captain for Game Week 7. But now going on to the projected points thanks to fantasyfootballfix.com, and as you guys can see here that the Fix algorithm is actually predicting Ronaldo to score the most points in Game Week 7. He's then closely followed up by Antonio, who has the Brentford fixture. The only thing I will say about that Brentford game is, yes, I think there could be goals in it, but Brentford have also been one of those kind of surprise packages from a defensive point of view, and West Ham also haven't been on the best of form recently, so I'm a little bit worried about Antonio as a captaincy option. But I think if you guys don't want to go for Ronaldo or Lukaku, or not even an Ismaila Sarr, I do think Antonio could be quite a good captain to go for, just because his stats look great, and when he does play, he usually gets some FPL points. What's actually interesting for me here is that Ronaldo is predicted to score more points than Lukaku. I thought it would be the opposite way around, as that's kind of my personal preference. But as you can see, if you guys are going to be going for the stats and the algorithm, Ronaldo is the projected highest point scorer of Game Week 7. But I'm going to have to go against the Fix algorithm. I'm going to have to predict that Lukaku is going to be the highest point scorer this game week. And if you guys do own him, I would definitely be captaining the Chelsea striker. So this is basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you're new and have not subscribed yet. Tomorrow I will be creating the best predicted wildcard draft video based on the Fantasy Football Fix kind of predicted points or the algorithm. So hopefully I see you guys there, and let me know in the comments down below if that would be a video that you are interested in. Otherwise, I'll hopefully see you guys in the deadline stream coming up on Saturday. And I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.